Fargo build part 3. So leaving off where we were on part 2, we're back at it now. Today is Friday. Ryan showed up yesterday, Thursday. On his way down, he picked up a common rail 3rd gen manifold, and that's actually in its stock location and not flipped upside down. So that's going to work out quite nicely. We still have to modify the down pipe a little bit, which is this piece here. That doesn't quite fit, but it's not hard to chop that up and make it fit. So we got that in there. I'm getting a fitting for the oil feed, and we got to make a new oil drain, but that should all work out. Clean all that up in the sandblast cabinet, get some high temp paint on it too, so it doesn't look like a rusty piece of crap. And then I've been working on the tank. I'm no master TIG welder, but I can get myself through. I can TIG weld. It's just not beautiful. Not yet. I'll get there. I've seen worse though. I've seen worse. So I've relocated those spigots from this side to the top here, but I'll show you all that when I get that in. That's where we're at. Getting the tank sorted out. I've cut the spigots off the side, and we're going to be relocating them to the top because it's going to work better in our application where the tank is sitting. Got a patch made. I'm just going to weld that on there to seal it up, and then get those fitted back into the top right about there. Morning update. Tank's been outside, flushed and cleaned out. It's all ready to go back in the truck now. And I got the mounts fabricated and in. They're just 2 strips and nuts on the backside, so there's captured nuts here, so all you got to do is run the bolt in. I'm going to cut a piece of rubber for it to sit on in there nicely so it's not aluminum on steel. And then I haven't really been filming too much because we're kind of all over the place with projects here and there. Core support has been boxed in. I did box it. I'll get some better pictures of it when it comes apart again. But we've got the mounts all fabricated. And if you look, it's not this side, but the other side, we're missing one of these rubber grommets, and Ryan actually printed one from, I believe, nylon?
TPU.
TPU. I was wrong. Anyways, I'll show you that in a sec. I got to weld this out, and this will get some more paint here tonight. Diffs back out so we can paint all of that stuff. I've made the shackles for that now, the proper 4-inch ones. We've got a nice fan shroud mount here out of aluminum that we drew on the CAD and then plasma tabled the thing out and press broke it all up. So that's one piece, one and done. That's pretty cool. Today I'm going to get the front mounts for this and the charger, or intercooler, sorry, fabricated. Where's that nylon, or TPU, sorry. Is it that one? No, it's that one. Look at that. That bushing was printed on the 3D printer because we were missing one. That's pretty cool. Working on getting that manifold sorted and fitted for this setup. Transfer case is starting to go back together. I did actually end up getting that back from the machine shop Tuesday afternoon. So they had a 1-day turnaround on that. That was pretty awesome of them. So that is now bored out for that big bearing. Got the dash back out because we're putting some new vents and stuff in, and Ryan's just working on getting a adapter fitting made for that. That's kind of where we're at. We're all over the place right now with projects bouncing around one to another. This is the point in the project where you hit lots of little roadblocks and you just got to move on to something else until other stuff is ready. So we've got our list of projects to tick off, list of stuff to get, our notes. We'll just keep plugging away. See how much we can get done over the weekend. Working on the manifold swap. So we're going from the second gen 12 valve, 24 valve head to a common rail 03 plus manifold. And they are a little bit different in the ports, but we're just going to port match this manifold. Is there a gasket around?
Yeah, just over here. I'm ahead of you.
I just want to. So that I'm just gonna knock an edge on this a little bit so it's not a straight wall and create a hot spot. So Austin's set up right now and he's going to tidy all that up, and then we'll put it on the belt sander and face all that so it's all nice and flat. Update on the manifold. Austin's been going at this with the die grinder, but you can see here how now we've just got a bit of that relief so that when the exhaust comes out, it actually has a bit of a ramp to come down there and not just deadhead into that. And then we've ran that on the belt sander just to true it up a little bit so it's got the best chance at sealing for longevity. Quick shot of that core support box back in, and if you look at the previous video you can see the piece that I had to cut out of here for the cooler stock to fit. We just broke up a piece. This actually comes down, bends 90 in with a hole in it, so the bolt goes through this plate and then holds it all together. See if I can get a shot of that over there. And there you can see that return that I was talking about. Down, bends over, it's welded on the bottom, all the way up the top, all the way around. Nice and strong again. Saturday parts run. We got our speedometer cable, and we picked up some more of those AC Delco Gold batteries. These are what I put in my Super Duty not that long ago. They have a 42-month warranty, and they're 850 cranking amps each. Those are decent for the price. Oil filter, fuel filter, intake gasket, turbo gasket, battery terminals. So all new gaskets and everything that we taken apart, fresh filters, should be good. Quick video of the dash vents. So obviously these are our factory vents. They're locked into pointing that way and that way. And the kit that we got to redo this stuff has these little guys, and they actually rotate. So Ryan has whipped up this adapter that actually uses the factory hardware and will go in the factory location, and then these fit in there nicely, and then these are actually rotatable, so you can run it to vent on the dash to defrost in the morning or point both of them towards you, whatever you want to do. So I think that's going to be pretty cool. I like it. And easy. That was 3D printed. Factory little piece. How cool is that? So that and that. Handy. Core supports all put back together. So we've got a tab down the bottom here with 2 nutserts into it to locate that. And then a tab bracket welded to the middle section that goes all the way up and over with a bolt that goes straight through. You can see that that wraps all the way up and over. So no matter if you push or pull on the core support, it's fully captured. So this drops over top now. There we go. Last little detail of getting the pedals in is that you need a square hole in the firewall for the cable. Which is now through double plates. It's kind of a pain in the butt to get that, but what I came up with is this fully automatic assault file. First one ever. And I just cut a notch down on it and welded it to a Sawzall blade. So I had that in there and just made a square hole. Now that fits. Cooler stack is all 100% done. Looking sharp. When I pull it apart, I'll clean up these little tabs and paint it. But those are the top mounts for the intercooler. I just took the factory brackets and modified them a little bit and then re-riveted them back on. That worked out well. And the top ones, I just dropped a 1/2-inch bushing sleeve in here, welded it to the core support, and then I machined up some little spacers because I didn't have quite enough, but I needed that to be all the way flush with this to get the bolt and washer on. I couldn't have it step back into here. Pretty happy with that. That looks pretty slick and it's solid. And then there's that fan shroud that I was talking about the other day that we pressed up, cut and made on the plasma table, and then press braked all into one piece. So that's all on there. That's a big job, but it went together quite well. That's a big part of the project, is your cooler stack, and it's all together. We're moving forward. Pedal assembly is in for the last time, and I didn't get a shot of this before, but these bolts that are in here, this is what Dodge had factory. It's like a tiny little 1/4-inch size stud, and Ryan has gone in and actually drilled and tapped that solid cast aluminum for a proper 3/8 size bolt, so that's extra sturdy now. And then on the Dodges, the steering column actually comes out in between the clutch and the brake. So Ryan went in with the torches, heated this up, and did a bunch of funky bends and stuff to get the brake pedal kicked over. But then by moving that over, we had a big gap between the gas pedal and the brake pedal. And the solution was to put an automatic brake pedal on it to bring this edge closer. That was another one of Ryan's ideas. But that is a good problem solver right there. Gap between the brake and the clutch isn't really a big deal because it's 2 different feet. But you got to be within reason for the gas and the brake for your foot to flip-flop. Otherwise, it would be super awkward to drive. But that's looking pretty good. That's going to work out nice. Ryan's got the 205 put all back together, but we had to rob the front output. Here, I'll let him explain it.
We took the 32 spline front output out of his old case that had a 1350 yoke on it, and we put that into this case to replace the 10 spline front output with a 1310 yoke that was on this case. It's too small for what he's got going on here. He's got too much power. But this thing's got a brand new 1350 yoke on the back. He's got a 1350 U-bolt yoke for the front. The only thing we got left to do is, because when you swap out the yokes, the 32 spline seal is bigger for the yoke than the 10 spline seal. So once we get a seal in this, it'll be done and in the truck.
So this is a bit of a bastard of a case now, but it's all the big stuff.
Yeah.
So no more small 10 spline output. It's got the 32.
Yeah, it's a 32 spline front, which should be out of a Ford, I believe.
And it's a 32 rear output as well.
32
So that's
spline rear.
both big boy outputs on it, plus the new big input. And we got rid of that coarse 10 spline and the small yoke. So out of all the bins and bits and pieces, that's now a heavy duty case. Working on the heater box mod so it fits the new trans tunnel. This was originally what was on here, was this plate in that configuration. So we needed that room for the doghouse trans tunnel. And those went up to the defrost in the dash, and then all you had was this little flap to change from that the defrost to the floor vent. So that was the only floor vent in the entire truck, was it just dumped out there. So what we're gonna do is we put a plate here, and then this is gonna sleeve in at a bit of an angle, so it's a bit of an air duct, and then that'll just be a single tube teed off to the 2 dash vents, and then no more floor heat. We don't think you're really gonna need floor heat in this truck with the engine and everything all stuffed in there, but defrost is our prime concern. And also with those dash vents that are twistable, you can do a defrost and then twist them and angle them to the occupants and have heat that way as well. That should work out, and that's a solution to a problem that we had without having to get a whole new heater box and doing something completely custom. That's the factory box, making it work, and we'll just put it back in the truck. And someone has put a heater core in it at some point. It's actually new, so this should put out pretty good heat. One of the tubes was rotten, so I've got another one fabricated and put that in. Just about there. Get some paint on that and get it in. All set up to do some real paint again. So we got our shackles, cross member, steering box, transfer case. Heater box is just going to get spray bombed. It's inside the cab. We got the motor all wrapped up because I'm going to go in and hit the mounts for the cooler stack and the shackle tubes outside and the inside where the big frame plates are. Put some paint on that, and then we will do this one more time, because once we're done fabricating the new pieces for the inner fenders, we'll poly everything off again, and I'm going to hit that as well so that everything underneath the hood and all in here is all nice black paint when you open the hood. It should look pretty good. Okay, update on where we are at. We had a few snags or setbacks, you could say. We had to re-engineer some things. We went to go put the radiator in after the steering box was installed and realized that it's in the way. So when we were fabricating this cooler mount, as I was going to weld this out, there's the bolt hole for the steering box was right about here. And I said to Ryan, I said, hey, what about the steering box? And he goes, does the bolt clear? And I said, yeah. He said, don't worry about it. It's on the inside. And I was like, right, because I'm used to Toyotas where the steering box is on the outside right here. My inner intuition was right, though, because I had a feeling that something wasn't right. And that steering box takes up exactly where the rad is. So we had just enough room to move this back a bit and remount the steering box. So I've gone in, drilled 4 new holes, put 4 new slugs in, and added to the plate on the back side. And we had just enough room to squeak the steering box back with without interference. Here you can see from juggling it in and out, making it right. We've knocked some paint off of the timing cover, so I got to touch that up. And then the other thing that we had to do was move the fans. So all new shroud. That was the original one, nice and center. And now you can see that they are both shoved over, and this one is up as high as we can get. So that steering box head is right there. It gave us the opportunity to modify the top a bit. With it being flat, there wasn't enough room for a washer and like enough engagement in the nuts. We've actually gone and dimpled all of those, and closing up these holes, making them smaller and readjusting where they were, let us do that. So you can see how that one's dimpled, and those are all dimpled across now and have full engagement on the nylocks and with a washer. So that got better. And the steering angle actually is a little bit better too, because the steering box was a bit far forward. But I'll show you all that as I get it all back together. So I'm going to put that together now. Second hiccup that we ran into was this hanger was designed for a 9/16 bolt. That's standard of what I do most of the time, or 3/4 inch for the Toyota kits that I make. I was going to rebushing these and get a 9/16 sleeve, so I wasn't worried about it. Come to find out that these old Dodge Leafs that have a 1-inch OD bushing are stuck at a 1/2 inch bolt. You can't get anything else. So we had to go in and turn up some weld washers, punch the holes out, weld all that up in there. But that's all fixed as well. So a couple days setback on dealing with the steering box and the leaf springs, but we're back to where we were Sunday, I guess. Couple days delay, but start putting it together. So in the meantime, while that was all being figured out and adjusted, other stuff got done. Dash is in for the final time, and it's got those vents in there now, which are slick. I'm really hoping this works out well with those adjustable vents. And that heater box is all installed with that single outlet there out of the box. You can see how tight it is, but that hose just goes up to a T to those two vents, and that's pretty much the heat setup for this truck now. Ryan's printed another cool little part, so we've got a bezel there to hold that switch panel. That's all 3D printed, and it's molded to the dash so that panel sits flat. That looks pretty sharp. Headliner, quote unquote, which is the Dynamat that's quilted looking, is all installed. Back wall is all done as well. It's amazing how much that actually does. And now with this done as well, it's basically a headliner and will stop condensation. And it looks finished, which is cool. Fuse box is mounted. Start laying all that out here pretty quick and see where we're at. I think that's it for in the cab. Shifter's about to get modified and installed, but transfer case and cross member are in 100%. That's all done. And if you can see, so we get the light in here, you got to modify the transmission tail housing, which is standard procedure for any swap with a kit. We got to knock out that little corner there and re-drill a couple holes, but that's all dealt with as well. So this truck now has a 4500 205 conversion. Done. Got a couple more bits and pieces showed up for the turbo feed setup. I'll show you that when I get there. Intercooler's all painted nicely. Same with the front core support. That all got some paint on it, so that's going to look pretty slick, all black there. And I got the tank in and plumbed. So the filler neck's there. It's going to get a nice little metal brim to protect it. And obviously a new cap. Hose clamps, and that's done. Battery boxes are on my list for today, after I get the front end put all together. So we'll get busy. All back in. You can see how tight everything is. It just fits. We got lucky. That was almost a deal breaker. Had me worried there for a bit. We would have to completely redesign and re-engineer this whole setup if that did not work out. Just enough room for the tie rod nut to come through. Should be good. And you can see why those fans are moved over and up. And like I was saying before, that chunk of that steering box was occupying right where that radiator needed to be with the previous mounting location. It's tight, but it works. We were trying to avoid going through this front clip. So by doing this way and the way that the engine distance is set into the firewall, we had enough room for E-fans, no mechanical fan, but then the cooler stack all fit in here and the front of the truck remained stock and you don't have an intercooler or something sticking out into the grill like you see some swaps for room. We didn't want that. We wanted to make sure that everything stayed behind the front clip and was all tidy. And we did achieve that, but we almost lost it. We got it. And just in case someone's working on this and they want to know what model of Detroit this is, tag's still there. Working on some plumbing, but I just want to put a little snippet in here of what's going on. You always find that to do one thing, you got to do two other things first. So I'm working on getting the heater core plumbed in, and I had to replace the fittings that they had in there, which was this big conglomerate of stacked fittings. And I never throw anything out. If I have fittings like this that come from projects that go in the drawer, or if I buy them and I don't use them, I never return them, because in this scenario, I had that nice one-piece 90 in the drawer. So that's now going on this project, and I had to reuse the adapter bushing there. So this chunk will go in the drawer, and I'm sure at some point I will find a use somewhere else for at least that T. I could have reused this. There's a 90 in there with the spigot, but with what I had in my drawer, I've got two fittings instead of stacking three. So just less failure points. But in order to do that fitting, I had to take the oil filter off. And in order to do the drain tube, I got to get the oil filter back off again. So this is just dry and put on here super loose for now, just for sealing it up and not having oil everywhere. But that's my next project, is to get the oil drain from there to there. And turbo intercooler piping. We're close, but I've got this all loose so I can clock this and do whatever I want depending on my charge pipe that I figure out. We're getting there. Quick cleanup and a sweep. I'm going to evaluate where I'm at. I can't work in a messy shop. It drives me absolutely up the wall. Everything's just piled on the benches right now. Still got to deal with that, but that can wait till later. But front diff's back in. So let's start with that. So I just turned up some spacers here because the way that the frame and the diff center spacing is offset, they need to be spaced out. I still got some fiddling to do and adjust all that and make it 100% happy. It's just sitting in there for the time being. But those spacers are made from this stuff right here, which is UHMW plastic. Hard. It's cool stuff. It's very versatile. They use it in mills and stuff like that for rollers and slides. And then steering angle. So as you can see that I was talking about, they're both parallel now. So as before, when that box was forward, it was actually kicked forward a bit. It doesn't really matter. It's just we had room to bring it back, and now they're actually parallel. The only time you run into trouble is if when you push your axle forward and this one actually is crossing over that one. So when it comes up, it contacts the drag link, sorry. But that's that. Turbo's all installed.
I had to go in and re-clock all this. That was kind of a pain in the butt because it was all seized up. But rotate that center cartridge to sit in this configuration because you need that drain to come straight down through and out and not have any interference. This turbo was clocked and set up for the 12 valve manifold that sat up there. So that's all there. This side's still all loose, so I can do whatever I want to get from this charge pipe to that one. And of course, I've got another little hiccup. Now that we've got the right 2nd gen intercooler, the boots that I had for this was wrong because the 3rd gens have a smaller diameter inlet and outlet. So I got to source some couplers to go from a 2.5 to a 3.5 inch piece there. And continuing on with the turbo, this is what I was having issues figuring out before, is the feed line. This factory one is too short to make it from the block to the turbo. And being that it had the other manifold on it, it used to come straight up. So this end that is straight used to come straight out of there, and then the 90 was on the turbo end. Now I did some research, and in the common rail trucks where this manifold is from, they actually come out the side here. So they clear the manifold. We don't have that option. Any hydraulic shop in town, there's 2 of them here, they had to custom order this steel braided hose, and they wanted a couple $100 for a hose, and it was going to be a week or so wait. So what I've come up with is I've actually just got an off-the-shelf male fitting, and I just ordered another stock hose. This hose came from Amazon. It was 30 bucks. I had it the next day. It also plays into being serviceable. If you ever had to replace this oil feed line, it's actually just a stock line. There's nothing custom about it. So I'm going to figure out something to route this nicely because it's kind of long. But for what we got going on, that was the easiest solution. And again, serviceability. It's not the cleanest plumbing I've ever done, but that's the solution that we have for the issue that we were up against. And then the manifold is all on there. I've actually gone in with a flap wheel and shaved off all the markings on it. So if you don't know what you're looking at, it kind of looks like an aftermarket manifold. It doesn't add any performance. It just looks slick that it's all smoothed out. I'll drop in some pictures here. I started to work on some plumbing, and that is an off-the-shelf 96 factory rad hose. I think that's pretty cool that this truck has factory components. Same with the lower. Went to Lordco, bought Dodge rad hoses, and they fit. This engine was in something else before we got it, but that's what someone else had going on. Junk. Gonna go pick up some 3/4 hose, and we're gonna plumb in the heater core. Gonna come up here, 3D print some brackets and go over, and then the lower will jump in down there nicely. Working on the intake plumbing. So I have to fabricate a steel piece that'll come out of that up into the air filter. And this is why we haven't done anything with these upper fenders or inner fenders, sorry, is because depending on where we're gonna land this filter, I can build a nice pocket for this to sit and look like it was meant to be there and not just hanging out in this big random box. So we'll see how that lays out. And then if we're making a piece here, there's no issue to just make something that's a little bit longer and closes up this big box and just tidies all of that up. So we'll see how that plays out. Slowly been adding bits and pieces. So the alternator and the belt and the tensioner are all on now, and that all works. You can actually get that belt on and off without removing the fan shroud or anything. And there's enough room right here to get a bar properly on that tensioner. And it's super easy to get in there and get that dealt with. Another thing that a lot of guys don't really consider when they're doing stuff is hose clamp routing. I like to make it so you can't see any of them visually, but in a spot where you've got nice access to get them undone. Right there, I can get that one. And from underneath the truck, I can come right here and get that. So if I ever had to replace this rad hose, I don't have to dig from the top and it be in a stupid spot like below the alternator. It's in a nice location and it's tidy. Other side of the motor, we've got the starter in. I've got the column in. I'm gonna have to go and shorten this guy up a little bit because once we've pushed this box back, there's no slip here anymore. It's bottomed out. It does fit, but it's just locked up. The whole point of having a slip fit in your steering column is if you ever have an accident that column doesn't punch into the occupant, the driver, sorry. So you need some kind of relief there so that it doesn't punch the steering column. I don't think this truck ever could, because if it did get hit, it would just buckle right there, but I'm still gonna address that and add some slip in that. So what do I got left? I got to get the heater core plumbed in like I was talking about. Intercooler pipes, I'm working on getting some bits and pieces for that right now. Battery box, I'm going to get going on that actually right now. We're going to flip some material around and start cutting that out. Diff needs to be sorted out, and we're on to basically plumbing and wiring. Drive shafts, wiper linkage. Ryan will be back in a couple days and we're going to start hammering out all that little stuff. Inner fenders and the trans tunnel. I know I keep saying this, we're close, but how about we've never been closer? Got a couple 4-inch exhaust 90s. And you can see what I was talking about earlier about fitting that filter in here somewhere. I don't like what's going on right now, but this is just sitting there. I can chop it up and do what I want. But I've got the pieces now to actually plumb that. Got the battery box all figured out. Just got to finish it up. Needs a tab here, which I have, and then some ready rod through. This will get welded to the floor, and there's 5 holes in the bottom to rosette welded in as well. And then this is going to get like a little shelf over top of it so they're protected. And it'll have a wall here and a lid. So this will all be in a toolbox. You won't see any of this. And those batteries are even going to be hidden in there too. So you'd have to open the lock on the toolbox, lift the lid up, take that whole plate off, and then you can get to the batteries. But that's officially the last piece that we need to wire this truck. So we are fully ready now to wire and plumb this whole thing out. And that's where I'm going to leave you off on this one. I've got a box of some super nice green line heavy duty heater hose for the heater core. I'm going to start plumbing all this, playing with the intake, have some dinner, clean my benches off, get a good reset, and start plumbing and wiring this thing fully out. We're not driving it yet, but I'll catch you on the next one.